Breaking news now. That verdict reached in the sex trafficking trial of hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. Combs was accused of being the ringleader of an alleged enterprise that abused and coerced women in drug-fueled sex parties with prostitutes, which he called freak-offs, and then threatened them into silence. Diddy will walk away from the most serious charges against him. Jurors found him guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution, but not guilty on 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and not guilty on 1 count of racketeering conspiracy. Our correspondent now, CB Cotton. Let's go to her for the very latest. So, CB, a lot of information coming in now about the color inside the courtroom. What can you tell us?
Hey, Harris. Well, there's a lot of anxious energy out here because while we have this verdict from the jury, the next steps are for both sides to make their case to the judge about whether Diddy should remain in custody until sentencing. Both sides have until 1 p.m. local time to make their case to the judge. And so while we wait to see what comes out of that, I do want to give some of that color from inside the courtroom about what happened today. Jurors were only inside the deliberations room for about an hour. And in total, since Monday, they had spent about 14 hours in total deliberating on Diddy's fate. Today, they came back with an acquittal on the most serious charges Diddy was facing: racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. Like you mentioned, they did find Diddy guilty on 2 counts: transportation to engage in prostitution. Each one of those charges carries a max penalty of up to 10 years in prison. When the not guilty verdicts were read inside the courtroom today, there were excited squeals coming from inside, coming from the supporters, coming from people on Diddy's defense team. Diddy was nodding. He put his hands in prayer. And our courtroom producer also heard his children and supporters saying yes repeatedly over and over with lots of excitement. There were also several sighs of relief heard by our courtroom producers. And when the judge polled the jurors one by one about their verdict, our producer saw Diddy nodding his head as those responses were said to the judge. Diddy also nodded when the judge spoke to jurors and explained to them about speaking to the media, and he thanked the jury. The judge made a remark and said, "I'm sure you don't want to go back to prison." And our producer saw Diddy nodding vigorously in agreement. So we'll have to see where he goes next from here. But after the judge left the bench, we saw a lot more emotion from inside. Diddy clapped with his family and supporters in the courtroom. His family was cheering, and Diddy could be heard saying, "Thank God," and "I love you" several times. That's when all the lawyers hugged each other. And one of the defense attorneys, Tini Garrigo, she was crying as she hugged Diddy's family. Now we wait to see what are the next steps. Where does he go from here now that he has been acquitted on the most serious charges in this case? Harris, back to you.
CB Cotton, thank you very much. And with all of that scene set, let's go to Donna Rotana, criminal defense attorney and Fox News contributor. So, Donna, I don't know if you could hear CB Cotton reporting, but it's the next steps that we're focused on, and if Diddy would ever see any time in a sequestered way, either behind bars, home on lockdown there. What are you thinking is in his future next?
So I was able to hear CB, and I definitely think that he will have some form of confinement. The federal government is not going to put him on any type of house arrest. If the judge sentences him to prison time, he will do that in a federal prison system, housing unit. But otherwise, I don't think it's going to be a very long time, a maximum of 10 years. And given the circumstances here and given his no background, his extensive business dealings, I just don't see that the court will keep him for a 10-year maximum sentence.
Real quickly, what worked for the defense?
Well, I think what worked for the defense was they were able to point out these nuanced relationships and whose decision is it to decide whether or not they were proper relationships or relationships you or I may have been involved in. These were relationships that two consenting adults or multiple consenting adults were involved in, and they got to make those decisions. And were there violence and were there violent acts as part of those relationships? Yes, there were, but those were not the things that he was charged with. So I think moving forward, we're really going to see some interesting conversation about this decision.
All right, I want to move on to this, another huge story today. And I know right now we should tell our audience you're in Boise, Idaho for the Bryan Kohberger hearing. Kohberger is expected to plead guilty to murdering 4 college students in 2023. That hearing is set to begin in about 2 hours from now, and it is part of a plea deal struck so that he could stay alive. He avoids the death penalty. Kohberger will enter that plea today, but he won't be required to explain why he killed or how he carried out the crimes exactly. And it's my understanding that he won't have to apologize either. Here's Fox Nation host Nancy Grace.
We will never know what really happened. We would learn that at trial, but there's not going to be a trial. He will be forever shrouded in the mystique like Ted Bundy and Rex Heuermann and BTK.
Donna, can we just focus for a moment on that part about how there's no remorse that has to be shown? It's you just go and then you're in prison. No facing the family with any words of apology, none of that. Sometimes you'll see that. Was that negotiated out? How did we get to this point?
It must have been. If we're not going to see it in this case, it must have been. But you have to remember, in any circumstances, whether there was a trial or no trial, Mr. Kohberger has the right to remain silent. So even if this case did go to trial, the evidence that you most likely would have heard is from the government witnesses to come forward and say, you know, here's what we saw, here's what we know, here's what we did. You would see their evidence. You would see the photos from the home. You would see awful crime scene videos and pictures. But the odds of you hearing from him were probably very slim anyway. So I think that notion that we're not going to hear from him or he's not going to take responsibility is a little bit false, given the fact that a plea of guilty is taking responsibility.
You know, you saw Nancy Grace there, and others have made the point as well about him, about the length of time between that crime and now, and still possibly wouldn't have seen it adjudicated until later this summer in August. What's your take on that?
Well, I think any of these cases take a long period of time to get through the system. Obviously, the defense has a right to file any motions that they want to file in terms of evidence and what's relevant and what should be admissible and what shouldn't be. The government also has the right to file whatever motions about evidence that they would like to bring in. There was DNA evidence here. Anytime there's DNA evidence, it absolutely makes the time period longer. There's crime labs. There's things that people have to look at.
Do you think they had good evidence in this case?
So in terms of
to prove this case?
Absolutely. I think they had good evidence in this case, which is the reason you're looking at a guilty plea. I am surprised that the state's attorney's office here decided that they were not going to move forward with trial and seek the death penalty. I believe that in any state where the death penalty is an option and available, this is the case that it should be used for. So I do understand the families that are upset. I understand that there are many people in the state of Idaho, just from talking to people being here, that were surprised and upset by this, because when that's available in a crime as heinous as this, I think it really should be sought.
Yeah. Look, Donna, I don't want to miss the opportunity. You're there now. Talk to us a little bit about the people you're talking with and what the mood is in Boise, where you are.
Well, obviously, Boise is not Moscow, so Boise is a little bit different than the area around the University of Iowa, but this is a great city. People have been very lovely. I think it's about 5 hours from Moscow, but people here are very vested in this. I spoke to my driver from the airport last night. I've spoken to hotel staff. I've spoken to people in coffee shops, and people are really talking about this. They're very surprised, and I think most people were pretty upset to hear that this was the direction that it took. That being said, 4 consecutive life sentences is quite a punishment.
Donna Rotana, thank you so much. Good to have you on the program.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.